Excused.
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham. Here. Haas.
Here.
Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Reinke.
Here.
Grote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
We have a quorum. Please rise if you are able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Alderman Turner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we will move right into item D on our agenda this evening, which is public hearings. We have two, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 1.
Resolution for a conditional use permit for Nubius Couture, a proposed massage therapy use at 2363 South 102nd Street.
Mr. Scher.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Common Council. My name is Steve Scher, Manager of Planning and Zoning. And our first item is a conditional use permit hearing for a aesthetic salon and spa, which will also feature massage therapy. And just a note, you'll hear me use the term conditional use. Conditional use is a use that's allowed within our zoning code. And it needs to meet the conditions specified within the zoning code, but also any conditions imposed by the city's Common Council. The location here on 102nd Street is on the west side of 102nd Street. It's a 3-story office building, and there is parking behind the building. But the tenant is going to be utilizing a portion up to 2,000 square feet of that space for their salon. And as you can see, the property is zoned C4 Regional Commercial. Massage therapy is listed as a conditional use within our zoning code, and thereby the need for this public hearing. Closer look at the site and the business itself, just located just south of Lincoln Avenue on the west side of 102nd. And then some of the services provided, in addition to massage, will be non-invasive contouring, post-operative care services, and other aesthetic services. The hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. No site alterations are proposed to the property itself. And then just taking a closer look at the site, there are 54 off-street parking spaces behind the building with access from 102nd Street, as well as a public alley to the west. And the site does feature landscaping and four-sided refuse enclosure. The Planning Commission has recommended approval at the December 7th hearing. Public notice has been served. No objections have been received to date. And the conditional use resolution that's before the council for action this evening does include a couple of conditions which the council in the past has, are recommended by the Planning Commission, and the council in the past has imposed. And that is that the business shall maintain records of appointments, a log, and then also install a camera within the reception or lobby area of the business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scher. Are there any questions from the members of the Common Council? Okay, seeing none, are there any questions from members of the audience? Okay. Seeing none, we will close our first public hearing, and I will ask the clerk to read public hearing number 2.
Resolution for a conditional use permit for Low Properties, a proposed community living arrangement at 1467 South 75th Street.
Thank you. Mr. Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. This property is located just to our south of our current location at 75th and Orchard Street. It's on the corner, on the northwest corner of that intersection. And it was built in the early 20th century as a single-family home, and then later in the 50s converted to a care facility, in which it has been for some time. Its occupancy is currently as a community living arrangement for 8 or fewer persons. As you can see within the RB zoning district, such community living arrangements are allowed as a permitted use for 8 or fewer persons, but once you go over 9 persons, that threshold then prompts a conditional use permit and the need for a public hearing and notice to the neighborhood. So it's the expansion above 8 persons, and in this case up to 16 persons that's prompting the special or conditional use. And the specific operations is that this will be a state of Wisconsin licensed facility, licensed through the Department of Health Services. The population being served is for traumatic brain injury, dementia, developmentally disabled, and advanced aged. All residents are physically and mentally capable of responding to electronic fire alarms and exiting the facility without help or verbal or physical prompting. There will be staff on site, including an RN, a registered nurse. No proposed alterations to the site or to the building as part of the the increase in occupancy. There will be some property maintenance updates to the property as recommended by the Plan Commission, including some fence repairs just to true the fence that's on the site, and then also to clean up and improve upon the the refuse area behind the property near the garage. So the existing building does comply with the International Building Code requirements for assisted living facilities for up to 16 persons. And the increased number of beds is going to be in select bedrooms. There are, I think, roughly about 10 bedrooms within this building, some on the first floor and then the majority on the second floor, where they will be increasing from 1 to 2 beds and then thereby increasing the occupancy. So the Plan Commission has recommended approval at December 7th meeting. Public notice has been served within the official paper as well as to property owners within 200 feet. The conditions that we've heard, I think, from some neighbors is that there are some concerns with respect to operations and property maintenance. And so this conditional use that's before council tonight is that has been approved by the Plan Commission is before council. The intent of that, it does include clauses to remedy the property maintenance issues with respect to ensuring adequate capacity, frequency of pickup, and a four-sided enclosure around the dumpster area, as well as repair to the fencing and landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Scher. Are there any questions from the Common Council this evening on our second public hearing? I see Alderman Weigel chomping.
Thank you, Mayor Devine. Steve, I have some questions and I have some comments. You just answered one of my questions. Well, this is a taxable property, so this is a for-profit business making money, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Now, the questions I have is how many, so I saw up there as an RN on site. Does that mean 24/7? Do we know?
I know there will be staff on site 24/7, but we're looking at, I mean, they're going to have a total of 6 full-time staff persons and 2 part-time, but not all of those persons will be on site at one time. I've been told that maybe up to 3 care workers, whether it's probably maybe 1 RN and other CNAs, for instance,
right,
could be on site. Yeah.
Do you know, is this 6 full-time, is this a new number? Are we talking about new employees here now? I'm just trying to see the benefit to the community as far as increasing the number of jobs available in the community. Do you know, is this a new number, or are they essentially having had the same number of people with just twice as many residents?
Pardon me. I don't know offhand. I would have to find that information out. It could be that they just have those people available, and when they're needed due to shortages, that someone is in the pool to call.
And I'm going to assume we're not really going to see an increase in the taxable value of the property. It's not like suddenly the city's going to benefit from more tax revenue because there's no room tax, we don't have a payroll tax. You know, the taxable value of the property, I assume, isn't going to change much. Again, I'm looking for a benefit to the community at large. So, and I know you're not the assessor, but I'm just going to go with there's not going to be a taxable value increase because quite frankly, I've spoken to a couple of the neighbors and there have been impacts from the community from this there, and it's not the residents, it's the employees. There's been questions about, and it's not even necessarily the employees, or it's the people dropping the employees off and picking them up. Litter on the streets, maybe the smell of marijuana, those kinds of things. And honestly, this is the first time anybody approached me about it, but I spoke to several people in the neighborhood. And I always tell people, if you see a law being broken, call the police. But I think I'd like to have answers from the ownership or management of what they could do to maybe help us with this problem. I do, as a matter of course, pick up garbage in my neighborhood, and I can tell you that corner right over here, as you said, right, is typically messier than the rest of the block or around the corner and stuff like that. I guess I never knew who to attribute that to, but one of the people in the neighborhood said, yeah, they've seen like fast food containers being thrown out of a car as it drives away picking up somebody at shift change. So again, I don't think anybody has a problem with the residents, it's the employees. And again, what is this doubling of their number of residents doing to make the community better if we're going to have these kinds of issues? They're not major issues by any, but they do impact the neighborhood. So again, I have those questions for ownership. Are they creating new jobs? Are those jobs going to West Dallas residents? And what can they do to help us with this issue of I don't think it's Uber drivers. I think it's just somebody's acquaintance or something that's dropping them off or picking them up. So those would be my questions. And do we know, is the owner or management here tonight? No?
If they are, please come up to the mic or wave. No, I don't believe so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Any other questions from the Common Council? Okay. I know we have some neighbors in the audience. Are there any members of the audience that wish to address the council or have questions under public hearing number 2? If you do, please come up to the microphone and give us your name and address for our official record, and hit the green button to turn on the little person. There you go.
Hi, I'm Corinne Grappeton. I live at 1503 South 75th Street, which would be right across the street from 1467 South 75th Street. All right, and I am retired, and I work outside on my lawn and my flowers quite a bit. In fact, everybody in the neighborhood knows that my nickname is Corky, that everybody knows that I'm outside quite a bit, working on my lawn and my flowers. And I cannot tell you how many times I have heard during the summertime and fall when the windows are open. I want to say that the help is swearing and yelling at the patients. At one time it had gone on for about 20 minutes, and I thought, oh my God, this is not good, And I have even asked people across the alley from me, because they're outside smoking quite often, they're outside at different times that I am, like morning, noon, and night when they're smoking their cigarettes, because they don't smoke in the house. And I say, hey, do you guys ever hear swearing or yelling at the patients at the nursing? I call it a nursing home because it used to be a nursing home years ago. And they say, oh my God, Cork, yeah, we hear yelling and swearing at the patients quite often. So I think this is something that you guys might want to consider looking at, what the safety of these patients and what kind of people are working in that establishment to protect the safety of our elderly or the people that live at that place. And what else can I say? Yeah, I spend an awful lot of time picking up trash, doing my yard work, and the house is like, you don't want to go inside my house, but the outside is like Better Homes and Gardens, right? And that particular site, they don't take care of the grass, they don't take care of the leaves, there's trash around there, and just like Mr. Marty said, yeah, it needs some improvement quite a bit. It's bringing down the looks of our neighborhood, and I'm proud to be a West Dallas neighborhood resident, and I take pride in my property, as everybody can tell. I live at 1503 South 75th, right on the corner. So before you guys make a decision, I wish you would find out what's really going on the inside of that building and on the outside. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I turn this off?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to address the council under public hearing number 2? Okay. Seeing none, we will close public hearing number 2, and we will go on to citizen participation. This is where the council can receive information from members of the public during this 30-minute period. We ask each speaker to again announce their name and address and sign in, and limit your comments to one statement of no more than 5 minutes. Does anybody wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Okay, then we will close citizen participation and go on to page 2. Top of the page, our standing committees will be meeting during recess tonight. Those room numbers are listed on the top of page 2. Item G is the mayor's report. I just want to welcome Alderman Turner to the Common Council. I have known him for quite a while through his work on the library board and the Friends of Liberty Heights Park, and I hope he enjoys his time with us, and let him know we are all here. If you need any assistance, have questions, don't feel afraid to ask. We're all here to help you, and we're very happy to have you with us. Thank you. That concludes the mayor's report this evening. Do we have any alderpersons' reports? Alderman Lysick.
Second.
That was a motion to approve, right? Thank you. And a second. Any changes or corrections to the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. And we will move on to standing committee reports. And I'll ask the clerk to read License and Health.
The License and Health Committee recommended approval of item number 4, suspending the Class B Tavern and Public Entertainment premise license for 30 consecutive days, and approval of item number 5, with the licensee notified that drug activity must be addressed with new enforcement action and work to abate noise issues and comply with other local, state, and federal regulations.
Thank you.
Mayor Devine, I move to adopt the findings and facts and conclusions of law as presented by the License and Health Committee report, but impose the following discipline contrary to the committee's recommendation. A suspension of the Class B Tavern license for 60 days. If there is a second, I'd like to be heard on my motion, Mayor.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, we have a motion and a second and a city attorney.
so this motion relates to item 4 only?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to bring awareness to the committee that we had about 5.5 hours of testimony and deliberation regarding Lemansky's Pub. And at the time when we had our deliberations, we took careful consideration on all aspects of the business, but we were not aware that the food license with Lemansky's was not within our jurisdiction, so to speak. It was understood by the committee that the primary and principal activity of the business license is what we thought we were addressing, and if you close a tavern that happens to serve food, how can the tavern remain open? And vice versa. If it was a restaurant that served alcohol but had an infraction against food, would that be the principal primary business? So we deliberated quite a bit on that without realizing until I was presenting the findings on behalf of the committee that that was an issue. So just so everyone's aware, these infractions that Lemansky's Pub was found in violation of are severe. They range from weapons to drugs to fights to continued police presence, nuisances to the neighborhood, all things that we need to be responsible for. It's not the will of the committee, it's the duty and responsibility of the committee. And I think we're sending a poor message to businesses and our community to give slaps on the wrist when it comes to this. Had we known that the full closure could not take place unless Lemansky's chose to voluntarily give up their food activity, we would have been, the consequence would have been more significant. And that is the reason behind the 60 days versus the 30 days. So it was mentioned that Lemansky's Pub's business model has 60%, if I'm correct, 60% of their sales is food. So they can remain open and still survive. But when you have these serious infractions happening, and I want to note to the committee that this isn't a new standard to be set. This is following the fact that since I've been on committee, we closed down a business for some of these same infractions. So when it was recommended, we took into consideration the remedial efforts. We took into considerations of the presentation of Mr. Randall, that, you know, they asked for 10 days, and how we divided that up was 10 days per infraction. So at this time, I would request that you really take this seriously, setting a standard that we are not going to allow these things to take place in our city, basically explaining it away and saying, and I need to give a little bit of background on it. We didn't find the agent's testimony to be credible. On paper, it looks wonderful, but we did not find it to be credible. We cannot have business owners in our community that absolve themselves from responsibility to oversee their businesses by saying, oh, well, I wasn't aware of that, or my employee did that. We have a huge responsibility, and I don't want to see our city, especially going in the positive direction that we're going in, to have establishments that aren't following the rules of the state statute for the privilege of having their liquor license. So I respectfully request that you consider and adopt this sanction of 60 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson Grisham. Alderman Rope.
60 days with food.
Correct.
Okay. And that's your motion.
Yes, that is my motion. My motion is a suspension of the liquor license, Class B tavern liquor license, for 60 days beginning January 16th. And if my date's correct, that would go to March 20th.
Mr. Mayor?
And entertainment licensing. I'm sorry, I believe those two went together under this motion.
Attorney Decker.
The representative for the licensees approached me asking to address the council orally. You all should have received the arguments in writing already, and the licensee does have to be given the opportunity to make an argument orally, in writing, or both. So at this point, it's up to the mayor to decide whether to open the floor to allow oral argument in addition to the written argument that was submitted.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with opening the floor. If possible, Mr. Randall, I'd like to keep it to around the 5-minute limit we put on our citizen participation, but if you go to 6 or 7, I won't cut you off.
Thank you. I was prepared to speak much shorter, but it's almost like I have to throw those notes out because I've been listening to what the motion on the floor is. I'm Attorney Brian Randall, and I, along with my colleague Charles Polk of Amundsen Davis, have been representing Kathy Gady, who owns and operates Lemansky's. Kathy is also here. Kathy, if you can nod or wave. Ed Jones is also the co-owner, and he did have to step out a moment ago. I did file a detailed response letter. I was not going to go into all the legalities, but really what I understand with the motion on the floor, I must go into the legalities, because the principle of licensing law in the state of Wisconsin is, and this is frankly with any quasi-judicial decision the council has to make, which is it must be effectuating your judgment and not your will. And it just seems like there is a pound of flesh that's being and trying to be extracted from my client in this case. We listened very intently. We know what the committee deliberated on with the expectation of the full closure. Unfortunately, the law does not allow for the full closure given the notice that was issued in this case, and frankly, given what's in the record. We acknowledge that the issues that the police department has been dealing with evolve around alcohol, and the bar service has nothing to do with the wonderful food service and the menu that we have. That's why I proposed, and I suggested to the committee, a 10-day suspension with the principle of progressive discipline, which is another legal principle that's important under Wisconsin law for licenses. There is a difference between throwing the book at a business and also working with that business to improve themselves. And we have very proudly worked to improve the situation. And that's why in the record, in writing, is the operational plan that Lemansky's has been sticking to for the last several months. And for over 75 days, almost 3 total months, we have had no follow-up incidents because we have cleaned house of the problematic employees. We have implemented new training and new policies and procedures and renewed the ones that already were in place, beginning with cooperation with the police department and self-reporting where necessary. I've looked at records from other actions the council has taken, and there are bars and restaurants that have not cooperated with the police and gotten 30 days. We have cooperated with the police. We have renewed that. We have added security cameras, or we will do that during a suspension period. We have added a bouncer as part of our operational plan. So all that's in writing, all of that is in effect already, and all of that has proven effective. At committee, I suggested 10-day suspension. I put that into my letter. My clients have instructed me, with the recognition of the importance of the full closure and what the committee deliberations were, that we would stipulate to a 15-day full closure suspension, waiving our right to appeal, meaning that what the committee was looking for and the seriousness of this, that message has been and will continue to be delivered. During that 15-day period, frankly, the findings that the committee made, it can be easily accommodated by just striking the 30-day reference at the end of page 3 and changing the ending date away from February 14th. This isn't something that you can just throw a dart and say, this is what we want. It's really on a progressive discipline basis, on a notice and a totality of the circumstances, what's reasonable. Running a bar is not easy. We had people from the neighborhood issued citations, West Dallas residents, as well as we had one felon who was possessing a firearm who had drugs in our bar, unbeknownst to us, violating our policies. Fortunately, was arrested by the police department, and the officer, talk about credible testimony, admitted that they would not have likely arrested that individual, found his gun, confiscated, and taken the drugs if we hadn't called the police that night and had that individual on the premises. We are not proud of the situation. We don't want to have that recur. We're glad for the last 75, 90 days it has not. But that's the cooperation we've had. That's the spirit in which Lemansky's, as a 6-year business, has focused in addressing those 2022 problems so that they do not reoccur. I would ask you to exercise your judgment and look reasonably at the record that's before you. And we can go into all of these details. They're not pretty. I will admit you to that. But there are some that the officers admitted under their oath that they were not credible police reports. So there's a lot in this record, but not all of it was credible. Not all of it was attributed to Lemansky. So we recognize, and when I say we, this is my clients. They put together this operating plan and went through it with their new employees. They asked me to propose the full closure stipulation of 15 days as something that was, in their minds, reasonable in listening to the committee, but in excess of what their lawyer had counseled them was appropriate. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, but as I mentioned, I'm talking more than I intended because we wanted to recognize and impress upon the council the seriousness and thought 15 days was appropriate. Now that I'm looking at 60 days, we may have to reserve our rights and we may have to appeal and focus on what's arbitrary, capricious, all those legal words that I put in the letter that I thought nobody would read. But we're here today to offer the stipulated 15-day full closure suspension, waiving our right to appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randall.
Mr. Mayor, I suggest the complainant be given an opportunity to make an argument as well.
Afternoon, everybody. I'll try to talk loudly. I got to wear this mask per city policy. My kid got a COVID exposure, so if you can't hear me or you can't understand me, just growl or raise your hand or something and I'll speak up. I don't intend to speak long. My role, although I'm with the city attorney's office, as many of you know, my role for this hearing is specifically as the prosecutor. There was another attorney in place that was the advisor for the committee, and so I am not going to be arguing facts at this point. I would direct anybody that is questioning that to either discuss it on the floor or have reviewed the YouTube video of the hearing that already occurred. The crux of my argument was going to be, frankly, that the food license wasn't available, and we kind of made a brief record of this at the hearing, but the food license wasn't available to revoke or to suspend. And so I believe, probably through counsel with Attorney Monty, that has been addressed and the record has been made there. So I will stand on the original recommendation that I had made to the committee and not identified a specific date. But based on the remedial efforts, I did recommend a suspension, and I do think that's appropriate. I will briefly address the nature of the Canes Bar, although that hasn't really been one of the discussion points thus far, but it was my proactive recommendation based on the testimony that Canes Bar the committee find that Canes Bar's complaint was unfounded, basically, with the directives of continuing the path that they were on. There was a lot of testimony based on, not only were the incidents that occurred at Canes Bar less substantiated and less problematic, but there was a lot of testimony that went into remedial efforts and kind of the investment that ownership had put into Canes Bar. And so I'm asking you to continue that one. That one's a much easier discussion, I think, but I didn't want to let that slide or not explain the basis of that findings and recommendation. So ultimately, I don't have much to argue or say. I just wanted to make sure that the legality of that food license was addressed, and I'm available if there's questions or concerns to discuss from a prosecutor standpoint, not from the attorney's standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Serwin.
Mayor Devine?
Alderperson Grisham.
At this time, may we have Attorney Decker explain what our jurisdiction decision-making, what the parameters are we have to work within, from a 10-day, minimum 10-day suspension up to 90 days per infraction. I also want to note that in asking for the 60-day suspension, it is to set the standard that we already have, continue on, with businesses that have weapons, guns, drugs, continuous fighting. As I said, it was 1 year ago that we revocated a business for the same infractions. So if Attorney Decker could explain that, I would appreciate it.
Certainly. So under 125.12 of the statutes, anytime there's a hearing before either the council or a committee of the council, the possible discipline includes 10 to 90 days suspension or revocation of the license. The statute itself does not impose some sort of standard or requirement for the council as to what violations equal what level of suspension. It is left entirely at the council's discretion, limited only by the standard Attorney Randall discussed, and that's the arbitrary, capricious, or discriminatory standard. Now, arbitrary would mean that you're picking a number out of a hat without any reasoning. Capricious would mean something that you're reacting quickly on or emotionally on, and discriminatory would mean that you're imposing a discipline based on something that's not actually related to the license activity, but more related to the licensee, his or herself. So as long as you avoid doing those three things, then the decision of the council would survive a writ of certiorari, which is the appellate action that a licensee would take who does not agree with the outcome of the matter. So avoid those three things, and then be consistent. So the way you avoid that arbitrary nature is to be consistent either in past practice or be consistent in this is a standard we're setting for the future. What you do not want to have is have a decision that is an outlier among other decisions. So I would encourage you to follow those standards and impose the suspension you see fit for your community. It is not unusual for one community to set a standard that is much, much higher than another community. And it's all based upon what that community determines as their own standard for what they want their alcohol licensees to do. So this is exactly your function as a common council, is to determine what that standard is, set that standard, and be consistent with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel.
I have a question and comment. I'm not on that committee. I wasn't privy to the deliberations on the suspension and the logic, but I did watch the YouTube video, the 5.5 hours of it, and a couple things sprang to mind, but one of them was that on two of the occasions of the fights, the bartender pled, I couldn't see what was going on. There's too many signs in the windows. I'm just wondering if we can impose a restriction on them placing things in the windows that do obstruct the view of the bartenders of what's happening on the sidewalk in front of the building. I do know that we have generally, at least in the downtown in the C1 district, no window can be obstructed more than 20% with signage. Not sure what it is in the rest of the community, but if there's I don't know what kind of signs they are. I haven't been in there since it's been Lemansky's. But is that, because if the bartender can't see what's happening on the sidewalk because they have signs in the windows, seems to me that's not a window anymore. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we could work into this stipulation.
You said the last word was the most important word there. The only way you can impose a condition on an existing licensee is by agreement with that licensee. The other time you can impose it is on a new license application you can impose it. but you could not unilaterally impose that on an existing licensee. The only way to do something like that would be to create a generally applicable ordinance that applies to all licensees.
Okay. I guess maybe I'd be checking with our bins department and make sure that they are in compliance with our existing sign ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Any other discussion?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Stefanski.
I just want to put a reminder out there. When we deliberated on this and we discussed what we wanted to impose, there were 3 charges. And we can do 90 days per charge. So they could be shut down for, 9 months from liquor and alcohol. And I think we came to a reasonable agreement of 60 days, which is 20 days per charge. And so I just wanted to clarify that to everybody.
Mr. Mayor.
Attorney Decker.
The law itself is actually not 100% clear as to whether you can impose that range of penalties per violation. The statute actually says if the complaint is found to be true, 10 to 90 days. So there's a little bit of gamesmanship here. There'd be nothing wrong with filing 3 complaints and then doing this exact thing that the Alderman just mentioned. However, in this case, only 1 complaint was filed, so my suggestion would be to maintain the range of 10 to 90 days if you're choosing to suspend this licensee.
Any other discussion? Alderperson Reinke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's unfortunate when a bar has violations. Truly, the committee has worked diligently. In this case, we spent over 5 hours going over all the records of the police, considering all the violations that this bar had. Collusion of employees hiding firearms with a quantity of drugs, including cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamines. Several fights, 5, took place. Fights and assaults in this bar where the police were called and spent valuable time and energy making the reports and listening to the complaints of the people that were assaulted. We can't allow our bars to become dens for drugs and fights and guns. We have to put a stop to it. The committee has been very generous as far as what we have indicated as their punishment, we'll put it that way. We've worked with them cooperatively and basically are doing the best we can for our community to stop this kind of action. This is serious action, people. We don't want our bars to be dens for all these infractions. We need to put a stop to it, and this is one way we can do it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Mr. Attorney, now just to make sure I have this correct, we vote on the amendment, or we vote up or down on the amendment and then vote on it as amended?
So the motion was 3 things. It was to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and a alternate type of discipline than what was listed in the recommendation. It's taken as one motion, so unless one of the alderpersons wants to split that up, then it could be voted on as a single motion, but any single alderperson could take any of those items separately if they wish to do so.
Thank you. Is there any request or any desire for separate action on any of those 3? Okay, then on the 3, I'm sorry, again, are we just voting on it straight out?
Yep.
Okay. Number 4 only. Yeah, thank you. So I will ask our clerk to call a roll.
I'm sorry, Mayor Devine, just for
Alderman Weigel.
For clarity, so this is a 60-day suspension of their of their alcohol only license, alcohol and entertainment licenses. Okay, so that means no, what's euphemistically called video poker, no billiards, no darts, no jukebox. I just want to understand what was going on here. But they can sell food to dine in and carry out. They could sell soft drinks, tea, that kind of water. Okay, thank you.
Everybody clear?
I would also ask Mr. Mayor just to reiterate the dates in which it's applicable. Just
We'll
to
go back to
make sure everyone understands that date.
Alderperson Grisham on those.
That would be 60 days beginning January 16th, going to March 20th, if I'm correct on the 60 days. If Google did not fail me.
So you could say 60 days commencing January 16th at midnight?
Okay, commencing at midnight on January 16th, 60 days.
Okay. That being read out and completed, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Turner.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
9 in favor, 1 excused.
Motion carries. And now we have item 5.
Item 5, if you could give me just one moment, Mayor Devine, I have to pull that back up.
Sure.
Oh, I have the item as to what it is. I just need the recommendation. The recommendation is to dismiss on the findings. I believe that Attorney Serwin had given a brief overview. Most of Kane's violations were sound noise ordinances. There was a condition placed with a public record of warning that there are some business practices that Kane's has to address, as well as if there are any violations of the liquor license during the remainder of the period of licensing for this year, that swift action will be taken against Kane's and the agent. So at this time, my motion on the floor is to dismiss with these conditions.
Thank you. Any discussion on item 5? Okay, hearing none, do we need a roll call? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we will move to the, do we need to approve the minutes, item 6? Or, all right, then I'll ask the clerk to read out item 6.
The License and Health Committee recommends approval of the December 28th License and Health Committee minutes.
Vice Chair Grisham, can you
move to approve.
approval? Thanks.
Sorry.
No worries. All in favor of the minutes approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Now we will go to the Administration and Finance Committee, and I will ask clerk to read out that report.
The Administration and Finance Committee recommends approval of the December 13th committee minutes.
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the committee report.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Lysick.
Mayor Devine, I refer the council to the consent agenda item K. If there's any item that any member of the council would like to be acted on separately, please advise now. If not, I would move for adoption of the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor Devine.
Alderperson.
Could we remove number 15, please?
15. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. On the balance, we have a second. If there's no discussion, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the balance.
Alderperson Turner.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham. Aye. Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion carries. Now we have item 15 before us. Alderperson Ranky, did you want to comment?
I wanted to comment, Mayor Devine. This is a resolution that I have backed, you might say, supported. This is regarding a donation to the West Allis Library by the family of Mary Rule, former library director. The proclamation indicates many, many positive things. Some of you remember Mary. Some of you probably don't know about Mary. She was a resident of the 5th District and one of our constituents that I admired and respected. She was a woman before her time. That's how I look at her, because she was director of the library. At that time, department heads consisted mostly of men, but she was a department head. As I said, she was a woman before her time. At that time, there were 2 branches and a small main library. And it was her suggestion that we build one big library, which we have right now. And we eliminated the branches, and we just have our lovely large library that was proposed by her. She also developed the Friends of the Library. Many of you belong to the Friends of the Library, and they do good things. Lastly, we thank her family for their generous donation to the library in memory of their mother, for her contribution to the city, for her contribution to the city of West Allis. Our library is one of the finest in the state, and we have her to thank for that. And so I'm very proud. I'm very proud to support this proclamation, and I hope you'll go along with this in honor of Mary at this time.
Thank you, Alderperson Reinke.
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the resolution. And I just would like to add that Mary Ruel was the librarian when I came on the council, and for a number of years, and as Alderman Reinke said, did an outstanding job. She's very well respected in the community.
Thank you. On item 15, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in recess.